Thank you, everybody. So I'm Magnus. This is Jesper. We are both from Studio Tumblehead here in Viborg. And the title of our talk is How to Make a Short Film in Houdini. So the majority of the talk is going to be to show off the pipeline we made for this project that we're using day to day at the studio and that we are going to share with everyone. So if you want to use it, you're free to do that, or just pick some parts of a code or an HDA, whatever. Hopefully it can inspire more studios or student films to try out Houdini to make a full production. Yeah. So a little bit about Tumblehead. We are a small studio here in Viborg, but we love to do stylized 3D animation. And we were founded in 2011, so we've been around for a little while. We love to make short films whenever we can, and when we're not making short films, we do work for different clients, commercials or game cinematics, or lots of different stuff. And before we start, let's have a look at our show reel. Thank you so much. So about Project Turbulence. It's a short film we made together with Side Effects, and where the original goal was to do all of the rigging and animation in this new thing called KineFX/Apex thingy. And we started during the Houdini 20 alpha. So that was very, very early in sort of the introduction of the Apex logic into the rigging system in Houdini. The UI looked completely different. There were no auto-rig components. There were nothing of what you have seen in all the other great talks here today. So there was a lot of R&D involved, which was very fun. And as a sort of added goal, we want to see how many departments in a production can we move over to Houdini, because we always had this dream of making a whole project in one software. And we all love Houdini, so if any software can do all the departments, it must be Houdini, right? And we were about 14 artists involved in total. Not all full-time, obviously, but on and off. So it was a very collaborative production. So Chris Rutledge, my favorite artist probably, and now a good friend, approached us and said, hey, I want to pitch this to Side Effects. I have an idea for a short film. And long story short, we pitched an animatic, and Side Effects said, yeah, let's do it. And that ended up in all of these people collaborating with us, which we're really grateful for. Here we have Peter Smith, which is my sort of business wife, the other half of Tumblehead. Jesper, that you see here, he is the superstar, creative superstar of Tumblehead. Ines, also from Viborg, did production management. Søren is here. I'm going to mention Søren's name a lot of times. He did a lot of the programming that went into this. Also lucky to have Remy on board. I will mention him a lot of times because he did a lot of the stuff we are going to show. Lots of tools and composting stuff. So Celie did awesome look dev, Danny look dev and lighting as well. Mede, awesome animator, now director at Kristen, Roy's company. She did animation as well. And yeah, I could go on and on. And also a little heads up, some of the stuff we're touching here, it won't be like a tutorial form or anything. We'll just briefly touch on the nodes we're using and sort of general workflow. We have done 4 talks before, like last year and the year before, where about different topics like rigging or animation, and those are much more in-depth. Also the story behind the film and how develop the storyboards and all of that. So this will be focused on more of the pipeline, how to actually make a production. Yeah. So we've been really lucky to be invited by Side Effects to do this, and we've been traveling around the world for the last year and a half, and had a lot of good experiences, met a lot of great people. This is from Paris. This I can't remember. Warren Leatham, he's just a staff animator at Side Effects. Been having lots of good talks with him. Chris again. We went to the Houdini launch in Paris and London. And yeah, just good times. We actually got to see the Side Effects office, which was amazing. For us, it was definitely better than Disneyland. And this is from Kinefest. What a lovely bouquet of talented Houdini artists. And it's been really a pleasure learning to know you all. And oh yeah, this is the secret room at Side Effects where we got vodka from Fiana. I'm not supposed to say that, but. So for this talk, we're going to talk about the pipeline, the steps that goes into making a full film in Houdini. And this is just a way of doing it that we developed over the last year and a half. But we're just trying to make stuff easy if you are curious about Houdini or our studio have established in Houdini, and try to make it easy and fast to get a product out. So we talk about asset workflow, shot workflow, and then at the end of the talk, we'll show the film. And we have bought some champagne for everyone, so hopefully you will do a little skål with us and celebrate the release of Turbulence. So I'll talk a little bit more, and then Jesper will talk about the next step. So just a little bit general about the pipeline. When we started creating this or working on the short film, very quickly found out we needed some automation to make the bit more efficient to do teamwork. Some pipelines already existed, but didn't incorporate this beta versions of stuff that were coming in Houdini. And we had a programmer superstar, Søren, on the team, so it made totally sense for us to just build something in Python from the ground up. We made some rules. We're going to do all departments in Solaris. We won't use the object mode. So everything is USD. There is no switching back and forth and hacks. Everything is just Solaris. And we're going to rig and animate with KineFX and Apex. And then this was added quite late in the process, but Copernicus, like the new compositing environment, came out in 20.5, and so, okay, we have to comp all the shots with that as well, and build a pipeline around that. Yeah, we like work. So what is TumblePipe? It's just a Houdini package. There is no installation or anything. It's just a package. You add an environment variable, and then you're ready to go. So it's a collection of HDAs and many, many thousand lines of Python code that Søren wrote, and also Remy helped a lot. So the heart of the pipeline is this little project browser that is fairly minimalistic, that you have open in all your shots. So you have, on the left side, you have your project. You can select assets or shots. Then you can select the department for each asset or shot, and just one click and it opens your scene. And it saves your scene, and you can also have it auto-publish, so just one click to jump between stuff. Which for us, we are wearing many hats. Like I can do modeling and rigging and look dev at the same time. I can just click back and forth, and it's in the pipeline, which is great. And then the obvious, like saving and refresh and publishing, and lots of other stuff. And each shot that each scene belongs to a department. Each department has a recipe that is loaded automatically, so you can very easily create your own templates for different departments. We try to keep it really minimalistic and simple, but this can be tweaked to whatever you like. So how we divided it, you have asset shots and kits are more like a collection of assets. And it doesn't support seasons or episode structure yet. That is the next thing we are working on. And then you have departments, and then the products is what is outputted when you publish. So that's sort of the naming lingo. And we're using a lot of the sort of the USD metadata structure to track all the assets so that you're not dependent on files on disk. It's actually just attributes, basically. So that allows us to do a lot of automation and validation and checking and chain tasks and stuff without having to open the Houdini file under the hood and check if it's there. You can just read this text file, which is much quicker and a very common thing to do in any pipeline, I guess. So yeah, here, when you publish the model, behind the scenes, the pipeline stores some metadata, and then you can load that automatically, and then you do some work, and you do some iterations, and that is also stored as text. So that makes it really fast, and yeah, again, easy to automate tasks. And we have a few methods, so how to kind of build your shot. We are usually just using the one we are calling latest, which just pulls the latest version of everything. And since it's USD, it's just layers on top of each other. So for us, that works really great, but you can also use a strict model, which is a bit more convoluted, but is safer. And it requires you to publish more often. Yeah. And then Solaris is just, boom, fixing everything for us. And again, we are going to go quite quickly over the different departments because we already have a lot of slides. So but if you're interested, we have made a public documentation on Notion, and I will show where you can find a link for that later. But every step in here is very in-depth, even if you haven't tried Houdini before. I would say you could probably make a short film by following this guide and using the pipeline. And with the release of Turbulence, Side Effects have made this really awesome website, sideeffects.com/techdemos/turbulence. So you can also find an interview there, and all the links that I'm showing today will also be there on launch, and obviously the short film. So over to you, Jesper.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna start with talking about our asset workflow, and then later we're gonna go over to talking about our shot workflow. And the asset workflow is divided into these different parts. First, we have the model, then the blend shape, look dev, and the rig. So if we start with the model, once you click this model button in our browser, this is what your scene looks like. So you have a subcreate to create the model, and then you get an export node to export your model. So if we dive into the subcreate node at first, you can decide whether you want to maybe model your own thing within Houdini, or you can import something from ZBrush if that's what you like. Or you can import, of course, from any other software that you're used to modeling in. Once you have your model in, we have this node that we've created, the Tumblehead cache, which lets you save either a single frame or a simulation so that it's embedded in the program or in the scene file, right? After this, we set a path and an output. Yeah, so about importing geometry from other softwares. In this case, this is from Nomad Sculpt on the iPad, so you could totally export an OBJ or FBX or whatever, load it into the import files up, and you're good to go. The models for Turbulence were initially also made within Nomad Sculpt. We later redid it in ZBrush, but that was the first pass. You can load in an Olympic as well. This is an example that's of a model and animation in Quill VR. So once you have that, you can export an Olympic and put that into Houdini. And this is what it looks like after you sprinkle all the Houdini magic on top. So once you're satisfied with your model, you connect your subcreate to your export model. And this is what that looks like. So when we're already within this asset that's called Jimmy, everything is already loaded. So you know you're in character, you know it's Jimmy, it's modeling, and you just hit export and you're done. So now we move on to blend shapes. So once again, you click the blend shape hat and jump into the scene, and it looks like this. And here you have different options, of course, of creating your blend shapes. I think in this case we imported the Jimmy model, then isolated the head. Then from here you can use this Go See node to, with one click of a button, bring it into ZBrush, do your blend shapes, then click a button, bring it back in, and then you have your blend shapes.
I want to add that after the sculpting sub came in 20.5, this was in Houdini 20 we did this, we have on the last few commercials done all the blend shapes directly in Houdini, which makes it incredibly easy and fast.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's also what this is. So if you prefer to, you can just add a sculpt node, right? And drag the vertices around, and then you have your blend shapes. So in the end, we put a cache on, and then we export. This is what it looks like when it goes out of the subcreate. And you hit export. And you're on to the next thing. So here we have look dev. Once again, you click on your look dev tab, and it opens up like this. And here you'll see a import model node. So when you select this, again, it knows where in the project you're at. So all you actually have to do is just hit import, and it will load your model character into the scene. From here, you can add a material library. And inside of this node, you can create all your materials for your character. So if we jump into one of these materials here, you can either choose to, there's many ways of making materials in Houdini, of course. You can play around with different noises or put a geometry color and all this stuff. Or you can input like a texture file from another software. So whether you like to work with texture some stuff in Procreate and export that, or you like to work in ZBrush or Substance Painter, you can do that. Oh, yeah, then we also have this, maybe you want to talk a bit about this,
yeah.
HJ?
Yeah, we've done a bunch of tools for the artists to use, and concept is nothing new, but we made some HDAs to let the artist sculpt the hair groom with tubes, and then we have a node that converts that to hair, and it fills out the volume with hair and has lots of sliders for styling and stuff. So that is also part of the package. So here Jesper has imported his mesh from Nomad Sculpt, put it through the HDA, adjust some sliders, and then we have hair. And that is for when we work with a lot of stylized character designs, this gives you a lot of creative control over the silhouette and the shape and everything. And the hair is the second part, so Jesper just split this out. And so he could apply different settings to the thinner clumps of hair. And then lastly, there are some exposed parameter again, just to add some flyaways, add some noise, varying the length of the strands, like your basic grooming stuff. But you could take this and then work with the vanilla grooming nodes afterwards and use it as a base.
Yes, and then once you're satisfied with your look dev, you assign your materials and you hook it up to the node that was already there in your scene, the export look dev, which looks like this. And all you have to do is hit export, and then you can move on to the next thing. Now we just want to briefly talk about Look Div Studio, which our guy Remy has been making, which makes it really easy and fast to quickly get some light on your character to see if all the textures work and everything. So what you see here right now is the buttons 0 to 5 changes between different environments or lights, and you can quickly circle through them. Yeah, and you can do everything in the viewport in terms of like this rotation. You can adjust focal length, rotate the light, and zoom in. No need to go to a specific node and type the numbers and sliders and everything. Then he has created this podium that you can choose between a disc, a slab, a box, and a cylinder, and you can control the scale as well very easily. And then you can pick between these different shaders, so you can showcase your model and its topology, or just a flat shade if you want that. Yeah, and this is what it looks like. Here are just a few examples. Oh, was there only one example? Oh, there's another example.
Yeah, so it's a great tool for making client reviews and internal reviews. So we use that all the time. And it's integrated with the pipeline and everything. Okay, on to rigging. This one we're gonna go quite quickly over because I already did an in-depth talk at FMX almost 2 years ago, was it last year? And since that talk and since we made our rigging setup, a lot of stuff has happened in Houdini, and a lot of these custom things we built are now part of vanilla Houdini. But pipeline-wise, you just click on the department, and it automatically loads in the model if it exists, and get the latest. So here we have Jimmy. Then all the rigging takes place inside a sub modify. And inside the sub modify, you do your normal KineFX Apex workflow. And in this case, I built a system together with Søren that we have an input rig, and we have some specific naming that we use, which is very common for an auto rigger. Then we add something we used to call labels that is now called tags in Houdini and is an integral part of the auto rigging component system. But yeah, so we just added attributes to say, hey, we want an IK here, we want a bendy setup here, whatever you want on the skeleton. And we like to use this class setup that helps us. We have sort of a system to auto-orient joints. I think works fairly well. And then again, you need the name attribute. And then that is simply put through together with the geometry. So you have the geo and the scale. And then the next pass is to do the capture or the skinning if you come from Maya. And we made a few HDAs to make skinning fast as well. So if you use the joint by harmonic capture, you can use this attached geometries to help you define the skinning areas a bit better. So for all the body rigs of the characters, this actually did the job. And for the rig itself, it's just one node. So as long as you tagged your skeleton properly, you get a fully working rig out of it. And this was all is done in Python. So we have a big Python module that builds the Apex nodes for you. So all the characters in the film is using the same rig. You're just moving the input skeleton around to fit the proportions. And then, yeah, it just works. So for the shot workflow, so now we covered the asset workflow. And so the next part is the shot workflow. We have layout, animation, FX, lighting, composting. And oh, by the way, we have CFX as well by default, but sometimes because it's just one artist, we fuse them together. So, do you want to say a little bit about this, Jesper? Yeah.
Yeah. So So once again, you click in your browser. You click the layout, and this is what opens up. And now you have this this import asset node, which lets you select which characters or props or sets that you want in your scene. So you can see from the drop down, you can choose between the different characters. You also have a slider that you see right here that you can add or remove characters if you want more than one in a scene.
I just want to add, if you have multiple characters, but it's the same rig, like we have 3 babies, but it's actually the same character, it is sometimes slightly annoying to get that to work, because you have to rename stuff in USD and graph the blah, blah, blah. So that kind of takes care of it for you. And yeah, we also added these recipes to just quickly import the characters.
Exactly. So here we see we're just trying to build our first scene. So we load in 3 babies and a dad and a Jimmy and a Mike and a Cheryl and some props, a chips bag, some different stuff. And once we're done, we just hit the import button, and then everything shows up in our scene like this. Once you have that, you can use a simple edit node just to kind of pose your characters in the scene, and you can add a camera to your scene as well. And like in our pipeline, we just have to make sure that the camera has the right name, because that's important down the line. But yeah, you can pose your camera, you can set your characters and everything. And once you're done with that, you link it up to your export layout and hit export. And now you're ready for animation. So this is also just going to be a very brief overview. But if you're interested to learn more, we have another talk right here that you can check out. Sasha also talked about a lot of the things that we're going to cover in his amazing talk. So we're just going to mention some things again. So again, you click your animation department. It opens up like this. Maybe you want to talk a bit about the build shot HDA and how that works.
For sure. So this is the first time you will use the build shot HDA, which is a very integral part of the pipeline. So there's a lot of different approaches to do asset resolving and kind of pull all the elements into one shot that you can load. We chose to go with an approach where we build it all inside of the HDA. So Søren made this script that with Python pulls in all the assets in your scene, and it builds your shot in a very structured way. So on the vertical axis, you have the asset itself. It could be like Jimmy, the character, main character. It could be a prop or whatever. So like this. So here we have the model at the top. So that's the model layer in USD, then the look dev layer. So each time you hit export that we have shown earlier, that will be like one of these nodes here, basically, which is a USD sublayer. So you can enable and disable and isolate, and it's very easy to sort of debug your setup to see what's going on as well. And then you have the asset departments here, like I mentioned, modeling and look dev, or whatever else you decide to have, and then you have shot layers or departments. And then this last thing here is something we call procedurals. So it's sort of our own take of the USD procedurals. It's just an HDA that takes the output, like an animation, and sometimes we want to have the wrinkle deform on, but we don't want to cache that every time there's a little change in the animation, so we just have that running live in an HDA, and it's being cached when you submit to render. So that is saving us a lot of time as well. And then again, or here at the bottom, it's the scene overrides. And if you wanted to, we have built it so you can totally have multiple shots in one scene file. If you want to do that, you just have plot down a new build shot and set it to a different shot, and it will load that shot, and you can mix and match from different shots. So if you have like a master shot and the other shot in that sequence kind of inherits from that, you can sort of build it out as you like. And this is for you, Jesper.
Yeah. So let's build our shot in animation here. What you'll also notice about this build shot node is that it says exclude shot department here, and it automatically selects animation, because if you already have an animation export, you don't want to load that into the scene, obviously. And it also automatically ignores downstream departments. So if you've been working on some CFX or light or something, that's also not something you're interested in necessarily having in your scene. But you have the option still to, you can just delete animation and you'll have that too. Or you can check this box right here if you want the lights for some reason in your scene. So we hit import, and then we have our layout scene ready to be animated. Here we have this animate node. Once we dive into that, you'll see that it already has an import rigs node, which has already loaded all the rigs that we need for our scene.
That is again the metadata I talked about earlier. So it already knows what assets are in your shot. So when you go from Solaris into SOPs, in this case, where animation lives in Houdini currently, it can read from the USD stage what you have in your shot, so you don't have to manually set this up again.
Yeah. So
but it gives you the gives you the option to override it if you want to.
Yeah, exactly. So the only time you actually have to go in and click which characters you want in your scene is in the layout, when you first put everything into the scene. So we hit import, and then we have our rigs ready to animate. That takes us down to the scene animate node. And once you click on that, you're in animation land. So I want to talk a bit about the animation interface just briefly. So what you'll notice is you have a channel box like you're used to from other softwares, which allows you to middle mouse drag to adjust your values with precision. You have a timeline showing your keys. You can see the ones that are really saturated green have keys on all the channels, and the ones for just slightly green only have keys on some of the channels. And you have an excellent curve editor, so it's all pretty familiar if you're coming from another software. Then we have the selection sets, which are extremely useful too. They allow you to disable the characters you don't want to look at in your scene, disable the controllers you're not using, and you can also create your own custom selection sets, which kind of works like a picker, right? So if you know that you only want to work with the eyes now, you make a selection set just for the eyes, and now you know every time you click that, that's what you're going to put your keys on. So extremely useful. And we have animation layers. I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory, very normal. So you can have as many animation layers as you want. You can set them to additive or override, and you can adjust their weight. And the animation toolbar. A lot of people are used to getting like third-party plugins to get all this extra control, but it's actually built into the animation part of Houdini already. So you'll notice down in the bottom we have all these sliders, and I also don't know what all of them do, but I like to use the a blend to neighbor and the eases and the push and pull are very useful to quickly just get some nice stuff. Yeah. And the global transform mode is a quite amazing thing that allows you to pose several objects at the same time. In this example, you can see that the cup is actually not constrained to her hand. But if we select the cup and then the shoulder, and then hold down Control and Shift, the cup will also pivot around the shoulder. And this allows you to quickly pose objects in relation to each other without having to deal with constraints.
I think for a lot of simple shots, didn't you just cheat it with doing that without doing any constraints? Or?
Yeah, you can totally do that.
Yeah. Well, that was very quick.
Yeah.
I remember.
Of course, with this method, the in-betweening won't necessarily, like if you go from one frame to another, the cup will just translate straight up, while the arm will rotate it when you play it. But that's why we have real constraints too. You can also use it to not have to worry so much about whether you're in IK or FK mode. To the right here, you can see her hand is actually in IK right now. But if we select her hand and then the shoulder, we can just rotate her shoulder with the IK as if it were FK, which is also, it saves up a lot of time instead of having to have a switch between FK and IK and then having to match them up and everything. Okay, but sometimes you do need real constraints, and for this, Houdini has transient constraints. And how these work is you just select your two objects that you want to have that you want one to be constrained to the other, and you select your frame range on the timeline, and you hit A, and then you have a constraint. So what's also cool is it automatically applies the changes that you make to your position. It applies that to all the keys. You have some different options here. You can set it to dense or to update mode. And the difference between those is that if you choose dense, then it bakes the animation of the constrained object onto every single key. And if you choose update mode, it just bakes it onto the keys you already have. And you can manage and view your constraints directly on the timeline. You see we have like a red bar indicating. So if you have multiple constraints, you'll just have multiple bars indicating the constraints. You also have the option here to offset. So in this case, the cup is the child of the hand, right? And if you move within the constraint range, if you move the cup, it will automatically update on all the keys. So there's no need to have a offset group and a group within a group to animate, like you're kind of used to when dealing with irritating constraints. Same applies for offsetting the parent. So you hold down Shift and A, and that allows you to just only move the parent without the child moving, and then that offset is updated to all your keys. So very easy. Then sometimes you want to spice up your animation a little bit, and for this we have, I haven't, but somebody has created a CFX anim node here, and with this, so this is the final animation from one of our shots. Like I wasn't going to touch on it more. Instead, we plug it into this CFX and just to add a noise. And here you can choose which noise type you want. You can adjust all the parameters, really make him go crazy if that's what you want. So like this noise is applied to the joints. So we're still in animation mode. It's not applied to the geo. We'll get to that later. So you adjust all the sliders, and then you end up with something you're hopefully satisfied with. That's a little bit of life. You can also use this node if you want to just add that little extra oomph or like jiggle or settle in your animation. So here, this animation is also done. Actually, it might be a little too done compared to what this node can do, because here you also have some different sliders that you can adjust to get him like super jiggly if that's what you want, or just kind of wobbly. And you end up with something that looks maybe like this, where it's just, subtle, that there's a little bit of settle on the eyes and on the body. But if we want to take this to the extreme, you can also animate an entire shot and just have it unstepped. Like this is the final animation, right? You don't really need to do any more than this. Then you pop it into the node, and you can have something that looks like way smoother, and you get all those little bounces and stuff for free. Which, I mean, of course, it's a style choice, right? Maybe you don't want it to be all jiggly and cartoony, but for this project, it was working. Once you're done with your animation, you connect it to your export animation node, and you hit export, and then this is what we have so far. The next is effects and CFX. So again, we pop into to our department. We just hit the import, and we got our animation scene loaded in. Now let's try to add some noise on the actual geometry, not just the joints, right? So here we have the animation with no geometry noise on it. I mean, there's still animation noise, so we just add an attribute noise node to it, adjust the sliders, and then you can get something that, you know, for this specific shot, it was starting to turn a little surreal, so it's okay that it goes a little crazy. Then we have our crying baby, and like yeah, I personally don't like to make babies cry. So if Houdini can do it for me, that's even better. So we have a wrinkle deformer that we can pop it into here and adjust to the amount of wrinkliness that we want. And then at the end, we just add a noise, and then you have a crying baby, just from one pose. Yeah. Then we have our gross up of Mike. So let's see how we go from this to this. Ew. So the way this was done was modifying the existing geometry or kind of replacing it. So here we isolate the head. We subdivide it so we can get some extra texture on it. Then with a noise node, we get all that like weird wrinkly stuff, and then combined with a wrinkle deformer, you also get those wrinkles when the face deforms. And then you point deform that new geometry to the old one, and it replaces the old one. And you can do kind of the same to the lips. Here I'm adding a noise to it, and then a peak node that creates this weird bubbly effect on the lips. And the same on the eyelids. And the nose, and pretty much everything on Mike. Then after that, if you really want to gross it up some more, we have this amazing node called H-Paint. Shout out to Aaron Smith.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so cool because it allows you to paint with geometry directly on geometry. So you can just go nuts, like adding all kinds of stuff to it. And then once you're satisfied with all your art here, you point deform it to the mesh, and then you have something that looks like this. So yeah, that combined with all the geometry deform, we get.
It's probably really, really unlikely that the plane would crash.
Oh yeah.
It's probably really, really unlikely that the plane would crash.
There we go. Okay, so safety first. We also want our characters to be wearing some seat belts when they're experiencing turbulence. And at first we were wondering, like, how are we going to do this? Are we just going to skip seatbelts altogether? Because it might be a little too complicated. We didn't want to go in and rig them and animate and match up the seatbelts to everything. So what we ended up doing instead was bringing in the default seatbelts, then adding a sculpt node to kind of match it up to just one frame of the animation, and then with a point deform, you can get something that kind of works, you know. Yeah. And once you're done, once again, you just export. And yeah, and this is what we have so far. But we're not done. So now we move over to effects to add some extra stuff to the scene. So we build our shot, we get everything into the scene. Here we add a subcreate node and call it tears. We want the baby to cry. Inside the subcreate we have all these nodes, which I'm not going to go into, but they create some points and turn those points into geometry to get these tears. We also want Jimmy to have some sweat that looks like this. There's a bunch of stuff going on inside of this HJ, which I'm also not going to go into.
Yeah,
but
and that was done by Christopher Rutledge. There are already, since the launch of 20.5, demo file on the side effects contents. So yeah, there is a scene there that explains everything, and is using Copernicus for the wet maps and that kind of bringing subs into Copernicus and bring it back to shading. So it's a very cool example that Chris made.
Definitely. And then lastly, we want to add some debris in the flight cabin. So for this, we just make one piece of paper in a subcreate, and we feed that into this instancer, which has a bunch of point scatterings with some animation noise on it. And what you end up with is something like this, a bunch of paper flying around. And you end up having something that looks like this, and you export. And here we have it. Okay, for lighting, maybe you want to say a few things.
So yeah, as usual, you click on the lighting department, you get your build shot that imports the scene. And the cool thing about all of these department layers is that everybody can work on the same scene at the same time, and you get each other's updates as you go. So when you're a lighter, you can put some lights down, and sometimes you I want to try to say update on the build shot, and there is an update with some new effects or new animation. So it's very easy to have a collaborative workflow this way. But yeah, for the lighting, we are taking care of the color space with Karma and Houdini. So we're using ACES, and everything we built is built around Karma XPU, but I'm pretty sure it works on CPU as well. We are a small company, so we like GPU rendering. It's fast, and we can do it in our office. So here you have a light, and just like a quick overview of lighting in Houdini. So when we make a light in Houdini, the first thing we tweak is the spread. That kind of gives a very different sort of mood for the light. So depending on the shot, and you have some different shapes. And the placement mode when you are in the light viewer state is really awesome. And you should definitely check out the different settings here. So here we're just using the diffuse mode, where you click will be the diffuse highlight. Then you can use the specular mode. So then where you click on the model will be the specular highlight for the light. Or this is one of my favorites. Here you have even more controls. You can click one point for an intersection point, and then where you want the shadow termination to end or to be placed. So personally, I think that is the one where you have the most control, and the one I use the most in Houdini. So you can see you can very quickly explore different lighting scenarios. And then Solaris has an excellent light linker. It's just a node like everything else in Houdini. It's click and drag. And you can see here we have like sort of a rim light that is affecting the whole scene. You drag in the baby asset, and now that rim light is only affecting the baby character. And then there is something called the render gallery in Houdini and Stylized that we use a lot. So you can, as you work, you can sort of save snapshots. You just have a button for that. And the really cool thing, in addition to be able to compare different versions, and it's nice for review, you can also right-click on the thumbnail at the bottom. And if you liked an earlier version more, it will restore the settings of all the lights you had to that version, and then you can work from there. So that's incredibly useful as well. And this is an example in our pipeline, how it would look like. So you have the build shot at the top. You can maybe plot down some temp render settings to keep it light. Then you have your lights, you place your lights, you do all the stuff, light linking, and that's it. So now we have something that is starting to look like a final shot. And there is a part here with some render utilities. This is also added in the lighting Houdini files. This is not a new department, but we have HDAs to make it easy to set up AOVs and puzzle mats and LPE tags. And LPE tags is where you separate lights into different AOVs in Houdini, so you can control the lights in comp. So if you use these HDAs, our comp builder, which I will show in a second, understands the naming and the formats and everything, and will get set up automatically for you. And this is also part of our recipe. So here we have like a recipe for setting up the puzzle mats. You can use CryptoMat as well, which is many studios are using, but at this point it wasn't really available to us in Houdini. So here are the LPEs. So we have separated out groups of lights. And these nodes are done by Remy. Did a great job on. And there are some nodes, vanilla nodes. These, for us, just made the process a bit quicker because we could automate a lot of stuff. And if you want to have render layers where you have two different versions of a shot, which is really, really common, after you export the lights, as you see up here, you can branch it out into how many render layers as you want, and you can do sort of override. So for many of the shots, we had one render layer called hallucination, which you will see in the film in a bit, where things are getting weird, and then we had like one normal. And in the hallucination, you had a lot of the effects that Jesper was showing. We like the deforming geometry of the characters and everything, and then we had a normal, and in comp we could kind of just blend between those. That's a very common workflow, so there's support for that. And then we have a render submission HDA, which takes the whole USD scene, loads it up, so you can preview it and validate it before you send it to the farm. And then we are using Deadline, and we have implemented like a lot of automation with jobs. So one job will spin off the next job when it's done, etc. So you can do sort of different steps in priority. So you usually have one job that renders the first image of the animation, the middle, and the end, so that we don't have to wait until the finished animation to see if there's something wrong with the scene. You can usually spot a lot of the errors just by these three images. And that is automatically then submitted on our Discord. So all the feedback is just happening in Discord, which we quite like. And then when the render is done, it's converted into an MP4 and also posted on our render farm Discord channel. And the last department is composting, and also the last department we sort of added to the pipeline because we could not resist not using Copernicus for Turbulence. So we have this node called Tumblehead build comp. And if you dive inside of that after you click the update button, you will now have your render layers here, and you can mix between them. And all of this is set up automatically. No matter how many render layers you made in your shot, it will read the metadata for it and build everything for you, so that you can spend time on the creative tasks. So it will automatically import all the LPs and AOVs. So all the lighting passes will go into this grade node. So now you can tweak all your lights in comp, which is very, very useful. You can animate your lights. So you will see in the film there, especially in the sort of hallucination shots, there are a lot of animation on the lights. And unless you're sort of doing that in Unreal or in Eevee, some real-time engine, that is really, really time-consuming when you're using a path tracer like Karma XPU. So it's really nice to be able to this easily just do it in composting. And it pulls in all your typical AOVs as well. So another cool node that Remy made, and Remy composted all the shots in the film. He did an amazing job, and he built a lot of great tools or HDAs to do different effects. So in the hallucination shots, we have a lot of composting effects. And this painted distort that is taking the position AOV, the normal, and the depth. Together, it can kind of create this noise that is not just random noise. It's based on the depth of the scene and the mask of the character. And so here's also a cool effect. So this is like a completely 2D effect, like a shader effect, essentially. But since we have these AOVs, you can kind of wrap it around the characters and integrate it with the 3D scene a bit better. And Remy also made an HDA to creating sort of like, it's not outlines, but it's based on the outline composting node that comes with Houdini, but with a lot of noises and AOVs blended in. So yeah, you hopefully recognize that effect in the film as well. And yeah, there is quite a few settings to set this up. Let's try that again. Yeah, so that is the final shot with compositing. And just to round off the pipeline chat here, so we want to do this as an open development. It's not a product or anything, but we want to share it. If anyone wants to use it, great. And we have, yeah, I'll show the link in a second. Just be aware that we are still developing this. It's something we use at the studio, so it's not like a thing you buy and it just works. But hopefully it can be helpful for a lot of people. Personally, I think it's great, but we have to say this. So, and Søren wrote this: it's free, as in free beer. You can drink as much as you want, but we can't be responsible for any headaches. So on the good side, we use this every day at the studio for all our projects. We also will continue to update the code base on GitHub that is open to everyone to use. And of course, if you have any feedback and you want to use it, and what about this and that, we are always happy to talk about it. And if it's something we feel is useful as well, we will definitely add it. So yeah, here's the GitHub link. This will also be posted in the YouTube description of this presentation and on the website I showed earlier, sideeffects.com/turbulence. And we also have a Discord server where we kind of post work in progress, stuff we are developing. So if you're interested and want to try it out, you can write me or Søren, and we'll get you on the Discord server. That would be very nice. So to round off, yeah, to say huge thanks to Side Effects for saying yes to our ridiculous pitch, and for the R&D team, especially for answering all our questions. We have lots and lots of calls with them, and yeah, they have just been so patient and amazing, and yeah, I couldn't appreciate it more. It's been an honor. And also to the rest of the team, to Bill and Paula, and all of the people that work with everything else than the software itself. You are all amazing, and it's been such a pleasure. And for the YouTube part, this is the conclusion. If you want to see the film, the short film itself will be uploaded as a separate video on Side Effects YouTube channel. So be sure to head over there and please share the link. We want as many people as possible to see it and hopefully get inspired to do projects in Houdini. And that is cut for, thank you.
First questions. Any questions?
Right.
So nice to see it up on the big screen. Yeah.
So as I understood it, the whole pipeline is embedded into the HDA, so there's no Python dependencies outside of Houdini. But how do you then deal with updating the pipeline as you go and make sure that all the different scenes have updated Python code if it's in the HDAs?
Yeah, so the HDAs are calling functions to a huge Python module that Søren made. And to update it, you would just pull the latest version on GitHub and overwrite your Houdini package, which is basically just a Houdini thing of adding like add-ons. You just have a folder and you point an environment variable to it. And Houdini expects there to be certain named folders and files, and it knows what to do with them. So
okay, so all the Python code wasn't embedded in the files. It's not completely self-contained.
no, it's just like a few lines, minimal amount of code in the HDA itself, and just calling the Python module, which is just .py files in the Houdini package. I hope I said that correctly, Søren. Feel free to correct me. Thumbs up from Søren.
Any comments, Søren? Comments?
No, it's pretty much like Magnus said. Like you make a Houdini package. It's like a plugin for Houdini that is self-contained, and that's where we host everything, all the resources, the code and the icons for the HDAs and the OpenColor.io config and things like that. So everything is just bundled with the Houdini package. Super easy.
Architect of the pipeline, everybody.
Yeah. Søren is the man.
Well, congratulations. Really nice. I really like it. I have a question about the jiggle, the former you have for the rig, right? To add something on top of the animation. Do you have to select the controls you want to be affected, or affected the whole rig? So can you just quickly elaborate on that?
Yeah, by default it works on all the joints all at once, but you can go into it and isolate or blend between different joints as you wish. That's an option, right?
Yeah, it's just a group parameter that every node has in Houdini, so you can like write the name or just like part of the name and a star, and it will take like both right and left side or everything, including arm or
great. So you
it's
can
fairly
play
straightforward.
specific parts, right, of the facial, whatever you want, you apply it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's now we're talking about the bone jiggle, right? But then there's also the geometry effects that you can add on top, and for that you can just use a mask, right? Because you're kind of depending also on there needs to be a joint there,
Okay.
right? So if it's just like some geometry without any bones, then you're not gonna make it jiggle. Then you have to take it to geometry
Okay.
effects. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Really nice.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Thank you. That was really great to see, and it's pretty impressive, like how you guys put together all of this pipeline by yourselves. Regarding this pipeline aspect, how you deal with like the database of that? For example, we use ShotGrid to kind of like write up like our registry, make sure that people are not overriding each other files, deal with like remote work, people on multiple sites. So do you have like an integrated database, or like are checking into like your server for like her file names and pulling the data from her? How do you manage that part?
Yeah, really great question. That was a decision we made early not to put in this version, because we were just a small team and felt it wasn't, we just wanted to make sure we got the whole inside of Houdini thing working. And again, Søren, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Søren has been laying the groundwork for that, but that will be like the next, one of the next big things we want to add to it, and users, and so you can hook it up to for example, ShotGrid. But yeah, am I right in that with the metadata stuff you have done, that is sort of laid the groundwork for that?
Yeah, like it's been in the back of our minds that we want to grow this to not just be a self-contained thing, but something that you could hook up to other existing systems like F-Track or ShotGrid, and so it's there in the background, but it's not implemented yet because we didn't need it. So just trying to do what was most critical to get this project through.
It's definitely something you need for bigger production. No, you're from Framestore, so there's no way to do it without, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, so I would say a lot of the like more advanced like asset resolving thing and syncing of different cloud providers or whatever, that we don't have any of that. It's more like taking care of the Houdini process itself at this point. So yeah, and when we have freelancers, we prefer just using like a remote desktop, like Parsec. So everything is just being done, saved to our server, which is has a fairly fast connection now. It didn't used to have, but Søren upgraded it, so it feels like you're just working locally. So we're just trying to simplify it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations for the amazing work.
Thanks.
I just want to thank you for the early Christmas gift of this pipeline. That's all. No question.
Thank you.
And hopefully the people that are using it will be providing feedback and more use cases, and it becomes even more robust through time. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thanks very much, guys, for taking us through that. Congrats on the release. And now it's in the wild. The website is live. I just looked at it a few minutes ago.
Oh, is it?
So it's out there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Fiona.
I've got one thing to show before we hit the champagne.
All right.
Here on my laptop, just a couple of things that are coming up in the year that I thought be good to show.